Luana, thank you for joining me. We finally get to chat. And I saw you in There's No Such Thing as Zombies, and I really enjoyed the performance. I wanted to talk to you about that. And then I was doing some research into to you, and I had so many more questions. But first, we'll start with your role in There's No Such Thing as Zombies. I wanted to know how you got involved with this because you were involved in both the short and the feature that this was based on. So how did you get involved in this?
Oh my gosh. Well, Mike, the creator, he sent me a message one day on Messenger saying that he was doing this film and needed an actress for it. And I remember saying, oh gosh, I can't do comedy. And then I thought about it and I thought, really, really want to do comedy, like really badly. But I was absolutely terrified. And so I was just saying I can't do comedy. I do horror. And obviously, eventually I said yes. And I'm so happy that I did. I'm so happy that I overcame all of that, that I didn't listen to my own nonsense and that I just because we have had such a blast. We've had the best time ever working on this film, and I would have missed all of that.
Oh, it felt like you were having a blast, and especially for you because you're in like 90% of this film. You're carrying a lot of this film, and you look like you're just having so much fun.
It was fun. It was fun. I mean, the monologues, the monologues.
They were
I'm not
very.
going to pretend that I didn't forget my lines 50 million times.
I was wondering about that because you rattle off your monologues so naturally in this film, and it comes so quickly that it was just impressive. I was like, wow, the energy that you.
Mike is known for his monologues.
But you nailed it so well, and I taught when I was talking to Deborah, she was impressed as well as at the sheer body of lines you had to deliver at one time in one take was just impressive. How did you prepare for that?
Oh gosh. I remember turning up on set and thinking, how just feeling like I was never going to be prepared. But obviously, it must have sunk in on some level.
Mhm.
But I mean, there were times when I just forgot. I just sat there and went, "Help," or I just made it up. Sometimes I just went off on one just because. Um, but yeah. Oh,
Well,
sorry, you
that's
nearly
okay.
fell. um, yeah, it was a big role to prepare for. It was the biggest role that I had ever done.
Mhm.
And it was the most challenging. And also, it's been the most rewarding. And that's what happens, isn't it? When we take chances, when we say yes to things we want to do, and we just go for it, we get the best rewards.
And us as viewers get really good rewards too because we get a very entertaining film, which I was entertained by this, especially with you and your co-star who plays first love interest, then husband. Uh, did did you have a lot of time ahead of time to prep with him, or did you?
No, not really. We just kind of went for it.
Mhm.
Oh, it was so much fun. It was so much. But I loved it. I mean, I loved that he was just stuck to this chair and there was all of this madness going on. I loved it. My favorite scene was, with the watering can. I won't say too
Mhm.
much. With the watering can, that was absolutely hilarious to shoot.
Yeah, you have so many fun scenes in here, especially when you get into the three with your husband and the zombie, and you and trying to juggle things. It's just I mean, you mentioned that comedy was, made you nervous a bit, but it seemed very natural for you. Did it help that it was horror? Because you do like horror. Did that kind of help maybe because it wasn't
Yeah,
just
like
straight comedy?
yeah, strangely enough, horror is
Mhm.
my comfort zone. So the fact that it was horror as well, yeah, it gave me some comfort, but also the crew, the cast and crew, like
Mhm.
I couldn't have asked for a better team of people to work with. I love each and every one of them, and they were all so, so fantastic.
Well,
And
it's but uh,
fun on set, like that changes everything, doesn't it? Like when you're having a good time, you can just relax more,
mhm.
and then the delivery ends up being better too. So it's a win-win.
Well, it comes just naturally for you then. You and Rudy really play off each other well, though. I don't know where he got those overalls or what would have caused, because at one point he's wearing overalls, and I'm like, that doesn't seem like something you wear in the city, but okay. He just
That's Mike's influence again. Another thing that he loves to do with his films is add things that are completely random. Like in Talk of the Dead, you'll see scenes where there's nobody around and I just hold my hand out and all of a sudden I've got a tie in my hand and it's come from absolutely nowhere. And he loves adding things like that. And Eddie, the director, like they both love things that adding things that are random that that are going to make people go, "What?
well, like the DeLorean. I was like, I'm watching this, and all of a sudden there's the time machine DeLorean, and I'm like,
Oh yes."
and I'm like, oh, okay, that is random. And Deborah was talking about how she got to be in it, but that was Eddie's
She was
idea, I
so
guess.
at home in that. She loved it.
Did you get to ride in it at all?
No, I didn't, but I
Oh,
did a lot of posing near it.
it was a very impressive prop, that's for sure.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. Oh yeah.
so, what would you say was the a scene? Because I imagine you're going over the scenes and you're like, wow, how am I going to do this? And was there a particular scene that you thought was going to be challenging, but ended up just firing off like like it just rolled off so naturally and came out a lot better than you expected?
Yeah, there's one scene which is probably about three-quarters of the way through the film. And when we were on set, I had a phone call with some bad news.
Mm.
And I just had to, shelve it and just go in for this scene. And I remember thinking, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do this
Sure.
scene. How am I going to be able to focus?
Mhm.
But it's like something just switched. And I found myself going into flow. And it turned out really well. And it's actually one of my favorite scenes. It's one near the end with me and Rudy.
Sure. Well, and that's great that you were able to take a real, world problem and kind of turn it around for yourself and use that as motivation to make a wonderful scene like that.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It was almost as though because I'd had this thing on my mind, like that was bigger than the fear of not performing or the
Mhm.
fear of forgetting my lines or whatever else. And so all of that went. So I know might sound bizarre, but I was able to then let go of that. It was like, okay, well, let's just do it. Let's just do it. And it turned out really well. Like we just got into flow. And we were absolutely exhausted as well. So we kept kind of
Well, I had heard you had a fairly short shooting schedule for a film like this. I mean, for a feature, you had only like 12 days or something like that at most.
wild. It was
Yeah.
wild. Yeah, there was a lot to fit into a very short time.
Mhm.
And I don't know how we managed it, but we did.
Uh, and now you also not only acted, but I believe you have a producer credit as well. You wanted to help produce this. What made you want to start doing the producing? Because I know how hard that job is, and then you had to act as well.
Well, I
Uh,
didn't know how hard it was, did I? I
oh,
didn't have a clue.
sure,
Walked
sure.
in blind. Like Mike needed some help with it. I said, yeah, that sounds like fun. And then all of a sudden I'm on set. I'm having to think about this thing, that thing, remembering all these lines and thinking, why did I agree to both? But you know what? Hey, we had a it was I had a great time, and I'm glad that I did it.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, probably in future I would probably do one or the other.
I imagine, but you're able to compartmentalize, right? You're able to just kind of separate it. I mean, you're working with a small crew, it sounded like, so everybody kind of had to do everything anyway.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's it. It was a small cast, a small
Hmm.
crew. And everybody was so, so professional and everyone knew exactly what they were doing. So, yeah, it wasn't that bad. It was a bit overwhelming, but it was all right.
One of the things I found interesting when I was talking to Michael was this was actually shot back before the pandemic, so like 2019, 2020, and and how prophetic it was in how people were handling the zombie infection, that the spread. And I was like, this feels all very familiar. And then he said he wrote it before the pandemic. I'm like, you're kidding, because
That has never crossed my mind before, but that is absolutely right. It is a bit crazy. We started filming in 2015.
ooh. Oh, that's right, because that was for the short, right? And then you did
That's
the
for
feature.
sure.
Yeah. And then he finished it in like 2020. So, and it's just impressive. He was still able to put the film together, but it just threw me because I'm watching this and you're talking about how people are kind of quarantined to their building, and you have, the ZIA out, and they're like, we just want to find infected people. We don't want to do anything. And I'm like, are you sure this is from 2020?
That has never crossed my mind. How
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, the wonderful scenes you have when you're trapped, well, not trapped, but you're kind of quarantined to your apartment, and conversations you're having. I'm like, yeah, all of it was just it was pretty fun to realize when you actually made this, uh, you know, um, that it was when you made this actually was imitating real life in many respects. So, very impressive. Now, how did you feel when you finally got this chance to see it? Because you filmed it in 2015, the short and that it's finally done. How did you feel about the film once you saw it?
Okay, so the first time I saw the full-length feature
Yes.
film was Cannes Film Festival.
Really?
It was terrifying. The night before, I had a minor freak out,
Oh,
and I was, because it's a real nerve-wracking
sure.
thing.
Hmm.
Not like, I mean, I've done stage in the past, and that's nerve-wracking. And then with film, it's like that initial screening when I hadn't seen it either.
Hmm.
And I was just thinking, oh, it I'm really happy with how it turned out. Really, really happy with how it turned out. And it was a relief because I didn't know what to expect
Hmm.
because of the time that had gone past as well.
Sure.
There's a lot that I didn't remember, and when I watched it, like everything just came flooding back. And I was really happy. It got such a good reception at Cannes Film Festival, which was just an amazing feeling.
I was gonna say that's got to be nerve-wracking, and I've talked to a number of other filmmakers as well who say, yeah, that first night's worrisome, especially when you're doing comedy, because comedy is not going to hit with everyone, and so you're hoping
Mm.
that jokes laugh. You're hoping someone laughs, right?
Exactly, exactly.
And
My
then
worst nightmare was everybody just sitting there and then getting bored and walking. No, like before we do anything scary, our mind magnifies like the worst of what could happen, doesn't it? And none of that happened at all. It had a great reception. It was we had so much Bernat Khan, and it was good being there again with all of or with not all of them, but with the cast and crew,
Sure.
and it was a great experience.
Well, because filmmaking is kind of a bonding experience. I've had the pleasure of being on set as a script supervisor for a couple of films, short films, and yeah, you kind of bond after working together for like 13-hour days for a week.
Can't not. And some of the scenes and stuff that you have to do, well, you have to be close, like,
Sure.
you know, you have to be cool with each other. So yeah, I always think it's like a bubble, like this filming bubble, and
Mhm.
you almost forget that the rest of the world exists. And you do this film and you're doing all of these crazy things, and then it comes to an end, and you're thinking, okay, I have to adapt back into society now.
Okay, I'm not the character anymore, but how much of yourself did you put into Carlotta?
Look, I can be ditzy at times. Nowhere near as much as Carlotta, but look, I found that part of me and I amplified it.
You dug deep, right? You dug
I
deep.
dig deep. It's definitely there. Carlotta's definitely here.
Well, it definitely comes across on screen, and costuming and everything. Was costuming provided, or was that stuff that you brought with you?
I had help from Layla Randall Conn for that, and
Mhm.
she is absolutely amazing. She always seems to know what I need to wear, how my hair needs to be, how my makeup needs to be, and she's just fabulous. She's great.
Yeah, because it was very fitting for your character. I loved the different wardrobe changes too. Everybody seems to be going through wardrobe changes, well, except your zombie, ex-boyfriend. How difficult was it? Because it seemed like everybody was having fun, and you kind of were cracking up. Was it tough sometimes to keep a straight face on set during some of your scenes, or were you able to focus on your role and not break character?
Look, we did have a few laughs. We did break into laughter every
Sure.
now and again.
But
But most of the time, though, we were able to get on with it. And I always find that when I'm tired, that's when I start start getting giggles. So if there's a really funny scene and I'm absolutely exhausted, that's usually when I can go. But yeah, there was some moments of giggles, but not too bad. We still managed to get to run on time. We got everything done, and yeah, it was all fine.
that's always the important part with indie films, right? Because time is money, and you usually don't have a lot of money for the film.
Yeah, like we just got to get on with it. Like with a film with a budget as low as that, it was just like, right, this is how long we've got. Let's do it. Let's get on with it. And I stayed on set as well. I
Hmm.
stayed on set as well, and we had some great times there. I say great times with memories of things like Eddie, the director, and Mike, the creator, coming in and waking me up with silly dances and stuff at some ridiculous time in the morning, like five a.m. They'd both be there like singing a song and dancing, and I'd be like, "What are you doing?"
See, Mike didn't tell me about the dancing now. See, he left that part out.
I
Uh,
should have told you before. You could have got demonstration.
I might have to reach out for a follow-up and go, okay, Mike, can you show some of those dance moves?
You'll have to. You'll have to. If I had to be tortured by it, then I think.
That should have been in the film, right? They could have been dancing zombies by chance. There you go. They should have made their cameo that way. Uh, so, what is it about horror that you enjoy, either acting or I imagine watching? What is it about horror that you enjoy?
The adrenaline rush,
Mm.
the excitement. Like we get to experience things that we hopefully never would in real life.
Sure.
And it's different. You know, I've always been drawn to horror from a very young age. My parents used to have a video shop,
Oh,
and
nice. Lucky.
from a very young age, I remember going in at like, 6 and 7 years old and sneaking away at like Chucky and like just sneaking them to my bedroom to watch. I loved horror. I've always been fascinated with horror.
Mhm.
And from when I started acting, my very first film it was originally called the Esca Trilogy. Now it's called the Book of the Dead.
Mm.
That's on Amazon Prime as well. And that was my first experience in acting. And that just got me hooked. I loved it so much. I can't explain the adrenaline rush that I get from it. So when there's horror and comedy together, well,
There you go.
absolutely.
Well, I always find horror is one of the more diverse genres, isn't it? Because I mean, you've got horror musicals, horror comedies, horror dramas. It always seems like horror matches well with pretty much every other genre versus, drama. People don't take drama quite as seriously. If it's a main drama film with maybe some horror elements, they still look at it as a drama, whereas horror always felt to me like it was more diverse and you could say more with it, can't you? With horror
Yeah,
films.
yeah, definitely.
I
I
mean,
find that more freedom as well
hmm
when I'm, playing the character. I find that there's more freedom with it, and I just really enjoy it.
you really
A bit of a dark, twisted mind, I think, but I love it.
no, see it. I think that's a miss tag on horror fans because I've run into people that, oh, you like horror, you watch horror, you like watching people like suffer and everything, you're into that. I'm like, it's cathartic because at the end of the day those people got up, cleaned
Yeah,
off, went home. It's
yeah, totally. It's like, right, we've all got light and shade in us, and it it's hard to explain, but I think you're right there. It is cathartic, and you know that people, like, nobody's really getting hurt,
right.
and that's the thing. Like, it's exciting. You get that adrenaline rush, but you know that it didn't really happen. Well, I could never watch those things if they actually happened,
Right.
especially when you've been like on set and you know how these things are done. Then
Mhm.
it makes it more interesting for me.
I was going to ask that if being in them took away the magic or added the magic to the horror
Adds
films
it
you
for
watch.
me. It
hmm
absolutely adds it for me. No, when when I see murder scenes and stuff like that in horror films, I always get this whiff of fake blood. And it's a nice smell, I like it. But obviously it's not really there, but
Right.
it's like those memories come back to me.
It triggers those memories for sure.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Well, and fake blood, depending on which blood it is, has a distinct smell that you're probably not going to forget, especially if you're covered in it for hours on end, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So what would you say here's a tough question. What's your favorite horror film?
Oh, you're gonna make me choose?
Well, one of them. Let's do because I'm that same way. People ask me all the time, "What's your favorite movie?" And I go, "What day is it and what time is it?" Because it's always changing.
Yeah, like it's always changing. Can I tell you the one that had the most effect on me, the
Yeah,
one that scared me the most?
sure.
I wouldn't say it's my favorite because, like, I don't. I've got so many favorites, but this one in particular, I watched it and I swear I could not sleep for about a week, and I convinced myself that my house was haunted. I'm talking about the very first Paranormal Activity.
Ah. hmm
And I think that the reason why it hit me so much is because I found it very well done in the way that it was realistic. Like the things
Mhm.
that were happening in the film are things that happen, you know, doors close on their own because there's been a gust of wind or something might fall. These things happen. And so to me, it was realistic. And so I remember lying in bed, half asleep, and convincing myself that the bed was shaking. I mean, it might have been. I still don't know. I can't prove whether it was or not. But at the time, I was absolutely convinced that the bed was shaking, and I was having nightmares. And yeah, for about a week afterwards, that film
Wow.
really, really got me.
Well, it is a creepy film. I like the one. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, the one with the original ending versus the ending they left open for the sequel. But
No, I haven't
uh,
seen that.
yeah, there was an original ending. It was making the rounds for a while. That it ends. Spoiler, folks. The movie's old enough. You shit. But the movie ends in the original ending to where she goes down. She goes after the cops who are coming up the stairs, and they shoot her dead. And they actually end the film with her being killed by the cops. Whereas in the newer ending, you hear screaming in that, and then she comes up to the camera and lunges at the camera, and then it ends that way. And I kind of like the original ending more because it's a little more tragic, and it doesn't leave it quite so much for a sequel like the Hollywood ending, I call it.
Yeah, yeah. And there were, a few sequels after that, wasn't there?
Oh,
Three or
plenty,
four.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But that
None of them got me as much as the first.
I was going to say the first one is a little bit more genuine in it, and then you get the sequels, which kind of happens with horror films, doesn't it? Though, I mean,
Yeah, because I mean, by the second one, you kind of know a little bit what to expect. Where with that first one, it's all a surprise, isn't it?
it's like the Final Destination series. It goes from watching the story to seeing how people are going to die in the most creative ways possible. So, and yeah, I've always enjoyed horror. I'm like you watched it way too young when I was my parents didn't care. They would take me or have me watch whatever. I think it was, just from the generation we're from. It's like
Yeah, yeah, things have changed a lot now. But back then, 6, 7 year old watching horror, it was all fine. As long as we were quiet, it was fine.
exactly. As long as you didn't disturb them or were quiet, you just watch whatever you want. I don't care. Just don't bother me. And I'm like, oh, okay. So Texas Chainsaw Massacre it is. Which I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre because that is one of those films, and I've had the discussion with other people too that you mention it, and people go, "Oh man, that movie's so disturbing. It's so gory," and I'm like, "Really? Is it? Not really." There's one gory scene out of that whole movie, but your imagination makes it so much more worse than what it is.
So well done. It really is. Yeah, yeah.
That's probably my favorite or most influential horror film. That and Psycho. Uh, you
Oh,
know,
oh, Psycho. Yeah, like that is just, yeah, it's
it
just an absolute classic, isn't it?
you can see why it's a classic. I mean, I even took my son. My son went to see Psycho with me. I was very happy. For a number of years, he couldn't even walk down the aisle of the video store and watch and see the horror. That's how much it disturbed him. And then when he got older, he started watching in social media rooms, and that his buddies that he played video games with online, they were watching movies, and he'd watch horror films with them. And suddenly he's seen so many horror films, and it was like one day we're walking to the theater and he saw the poster for the Halloween, the most recent, the first 2018, and he goes, "Oh dad, could you take me to that?" And I nearly cried.
Oh, amazing.
And now he enjoys horror. So he went with me, and he doesn't mind watching the classics, and we watched Psycho. And even for being, a younger generation, he appreciated it. He enjoyed it. Maybe not quite as much as me, but he really thought it was well done, you know? So it
Oh,
tells.
brilliant. That's brilliant. I do think, like, I do kind of prefer the older ones. There's so much that can be done now, with CGI and stuff. There's something really nice about just everything being not real, obviously not real, but everything being having
Correct.
to be done from scratch.
Yeah, I mean, indie films, like some of the ones you've been in, are still in that spirit to where you're doing them from
Yes.
scratch. You have to be innovative because you only have so much money, maybe not as much as some of those other films like in the 80s horror, but still you have only so much money, so you've got to be resourceful in what you
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. And I like that,
Hmm.
I like it. Yeah.
Well, it just feels more genuine. I mean, uh, the modern horror is really hit or miss with me, more miss than hit lately. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's why I've enjoyed indie films more as of like because you see so much different ideas come through on
It's so
indie films.
much creativity, I think. I
Mhm,
love watching indie movies for the same reason.
mhm.
And because I can just feel like the passion that's gone into it, and I can appreciate the creativity and everything that's gone into it. I mean, obviously with any movie,
Mhm.
that's happened, but I just feel something for the indie movie.
Though I will say, after I learned that you're a kickboxer as well, that you did get to use that skill, and there's no such thing as zombies. You could at least kicked one zombie.
Right. Why did we think of that?
It would have been great to see you at least kick the head off of one zombie, showing up at your door. That'd be great.
Right, Mike, take notes next time.
The next movie you make, Mike, write in there so she could kick the head off of a zombie because I want to see
I can
that now.
see it in my head now, and it's brilliant.
And then you get the 1,000 pounds per square inch, the blood shooting. You gotta get it shooting out of the body like a fountain after you kick it, right? So
I really want to do that.
you're gonna write a film, just the one scene. That's all it is. It's just a 1 minute short film. Just there you go. Zombie shows up. You kick the head. Credits. There you go. See, that's.
What else would it need? Like, seriously, what else does it need? Zombie comes and cut its head off by. That's it, done.
And you've been in short films as well, and I actually adore short films because of how resourceful they are and lean they are in stories. Do you have to do a lot of prep for your short films as much as you do for features when you take those roles?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is really getting to know the character,
Sure.
getting to know the character really well. But
Mhm.
then, of course, for a feature film, it's like there's a
Mhm.
lot more to learn, a lot more to get your head around. Um, but yeah, the main things that I've done are short films. I've done quite a lot of those. And feature films, it depends on, I guess, the size of the role. Like this
Sure.
one was a huge one. Like there was a lot to look. This one was definitely my most challenging, for there's no such thing as zombies.
Well, and especially nowadays, I mean, that's a feature film's a time commitment that I think people don't realize, even though and most indie filmmakers or performers when also have day jobs like yourself. You're head of a PR company now, and I imagine that takes up time as well. So you've got to kind of find that balance, right? And a family.
And a family, that's it. Yeah, I've got three kids as well. But that's one of the reasons why I set up my PR agency. So I set up Dauntless PR because one of the reasons was, well, because I wanted to help people to get more visible, because that's really important to me, but also to give me the freedom to be able to take these roles.
Mhm.
Like if I was in employment, it would have been up to somebody else whether or not I got to do that film. And that never sat right with me. So I wanted to create something for myself where I had control of it, where I could say, yes, I'm going to make the time for that. I'm going to get things sorted and I'm going to do it. And that's exactly what happened.
Well, that's great that you've got that flexibility. You're your own boss, so you could do that sort of thing. So you don't have to work out a schedule and go, well, Pete, could you take my shift for a week? I've got to go cut some heads off, you know?
I just, can you, I know that there's a lot that there are so many actors in the situation where like they want to take acting work and their employers won't let them, and it must be absolutely devastating. Like I don't know what I would have done if I'd have got that role and then somebody would have said no. I think I'd have done it anyway. Like I'm 99.9% sure I would have done it anyway and then had no job. So it was always better for me to set something up for myself.
And you've also had an acting school as well. Is that still do you still have that active or
No, no, no. So that was an amazing time of my life, and I learned so much through that. I set it up in it was 2015,
Mhm.
and it ran for 2 years until I then moved to Portugal.
Sure. Oh,
And it was
nice.
great, it was such an amazing experience to be able to pass on the things that I'd learned. We had an amazing team, and the talent that came from there was absolutely incredible. And it was such a huge part of my life. I can't believe that it was only 2 years.
Sure.
It feels like it went on, it feels like it was decades. It really does. But I think it was just such a huge part of my life. It was like they were all a part of my family, and making the decision to then move to Portugal, it was hard. It was hard, but I knew that it was the right thing, and I knew that it's what I needed at the time.
And sometimes you have to take care of yourself, right? As much as you love these other things and have commitments and stuff, sometimes you have to do you, correct?
That's it. That's it. Yeah, and it was taken over by somebody else.
Mhm.
Um, so it didn't. It's not like it just closed down.
Sure.
I think they changed the name and stuff now, but
Mhm.
yeah, they weren't just stranded. I made sure.
You didn't just peace out and say, "Yeah, you guys are on your own. I'm out."
No, no. But I did quite suddenly run off to live in the wilderness in Portugal, where I lived wild,
I
completely wild.
I saw that and that fascinated me. I was like, part of me was like envious, I'm going to say, that you did that because from what it sounds like you kind of cut yourself off a bit from a lot of things and helped focus on, yourself and survival and such and just living day by day without having because I think nowadays we get so exposed to the world being so much larger than like when we were kids, you know,
Yes. Our
and it's
brains aren't, they're not made for that. We're only meant to know what's going on immediately around us.
it can be overwhelming the amount of information at times. So to take that had to be, was that refreshing for you? Was it a refreshing break? Were you
It's
happy?
transformational.
Mhm.
It was absolutely transformational. Like um, I lived in a ditch with a polytunnel. It wasn't just an open ditch, had a
Sure.
polytunnel, but obviously no power, no water, no Wi-Fi, no food. I mean, there was a shop. It was an hour and a half's walk away.
Wow.
So I did that once a week. I've got
Wow.
something tough, and it was really, really transformational, and it was exactly what I needed at the time. I was
Mhm.
going through divorce, and I guess I just needed to find myself again.
Mhm. And then you came back with power you came back with gusto as you started your own company you've got handling your
I
three
started it
kids.
in that ditch. That's
Mhm.
where I built my business, and I'd walk an hour and a half each way just to charge up my devices so that I can get to work.
It makes you appreciate things, right? I think people may take things
Oh,
for granted, right?
I will never be able to explain the feeling I got when I got an apartment from there in Portugal when I turned on a tap for water flowing out of a tap, so that I didn't have to go to a river and carry it back in buckets. It
Took
was
took a very long bath, I imagine.
the longest. Seriously, before that time, I used to stay in the bath for about 10 minutes, and then now I stay in the bath for about 2 hours.
just just check out, just put yourself do not disturb. I'm just chilling in my bathroom.
Because I was bathing in the river and it was freezing. It was winter.
Oof.
Cold. It was
Ooh.
really, really cold.
Well, I mean, it sounds amazing, and you are an amazing person, an amazing talent, and I loved you in There's No Such Thing as Zombies. It was so much fun. I think the whole cast and everybody seemed to come together and just have this fun indie film that, I mean, I think, and I love talking to indie performers and those involved because I think people don't realize that you are aware of what type of film you're making. You're not making $100 million movie, correct? I mean, you kind of understand. It doesn't mean that you don't put any less effort into it, but I think some people have this idea of, oh, they think they're making. You know what you're making, right?
Of course we do. Yeah.
It,
Yeah,
it,
look, we just have fun with it.
mhm.
We have fun with it. We do what we need to do. We're very professional, we get on with it and we just have a laugh. And we're like a family, we're like the whole thing. We were just like a big, crazy, weird family.
So you've done acting school. You've got many films under your belt. What suggestion would you make to a young actor or actress who want to get started?
The main thing that I would say is to do it because you love it.
Mhm.
Do it because you love it, not for validation, not for any other reason, not for can't think of the word. I'm going to say validation again
Sure.
because that's so important. But it's doing it because you love it
Mhm.
and because it lights you up and because it gives you passion and because it's a creative outlet. And just focus on that love of doing it. And paradoxically, that's when things start to happen. Like I remember early on when I started acting, I was so desperate to be an actress that I kind of blocked myself.
Mm.
And then, later on, when it was just like, okay, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it just for fun, it was like, bam, it was like an explosion. Everything happened then.
Sure.
Once I had let go of the need for
Mm.
it to be something, when I let go of that expectation to get a specific result, well, that's when the results happen. So I really that is what I would say to any actor just starting is just fall in love with the craft, like keep
Mhm.
going because you love it and don't pay it. Know what you want,
Sure.
but then don't focus too much on that, focus on the journey and focus on enjoying it and having that creative outlet. And I really feel that everybody needs a creative outlet.
I totally agree with that. My day job, I work in computers and tech, so this is my hobby, as my wife likes to call it, and it's my creative outlet. Getting to talk to wonderful people like you and doing reviews and all of this.
I think it's important. Like, I think it's something that's really missing from education now. There's not that many creative subjects, and it just seems to be something that people that are a lot of people don't place that much importance on. But I don't know where I'd be without acting, without dancing, without having that outlet.
Now, how long were you into dancing? Were you into it as a child? Have you been dancing since you were a child, or did you get into it when you were older?
Oh, I got into it when I was a child. So
Mhm.
I was a very, very socially anxious child. Back then, though, there was no word for it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
there's no word for it. So, it was just like my, what would happen is that unless I was with close friends and family, I'd really struggle to talk. My throat would just close up and I just got so nervous and so anxious. But I didn't know what was going on at the time. And people just assumed that I had a lot of, people thinking I was too good to talk to them and that
Mm,
kind of thing. It wasn't, it's because I couldn't. So but what I found was that when I started going to dance classes and when I danced, I absolutely came alive. And that didn't require me to talk. So I
mhm.
was quite comfortable dancing. And there was this moment when I was in high school that completely, this is the moment that transformed my life. I will never forget this. There was this dance competition on in front of the whole school. And one of my friends was going on for it, but she had last minute nerves. And she was saying to the teacher, I'm not going on, I'm not going on, I can't do it. And I said, I don't know what came over me, being so shy and so scared of everything. But I suddenly found myself saying, I'll do it. I didn't have a routine. I didn't have a song. I didn't have an outfit. I borrowed hers, put on the track, and I just freestyled. And I'll never forget the feeling at the end of it. That was the first time really that I felt seen, that I felt like I was doing that. Like that's when I knew I was on the right track. And that's when I decided that I was going to become a dancer. That's what I wanted at that point. It was in dance college when I was forced into doing acting classes that I realized actually acting's where I want to go.
Well, and I think people don't realize you should always be evolving. You should always be looking and not fall into, well, I like this, I'm just going to do this and shut yourself off from other things that might even be more of a passion for you.
Yeah, completely.
Mm,
But I think I always loved acting and I was always interested in it.
mhm,
But it took a lot for me to be able to put myself in that situation and do it,
mhm.
you know, and to be able to do interviews where I'm speaking as myself. That was another thing again,
Sure.
that was another layer having to come up. I've had such a huge journey where it comes to going from somebody who was so like all I wanted to do as a child was be invisible. I did everything to keep myself invisible, to go from that to suddenly like being in films, and well, not suddenly, it's been 40 something years. But you know what I mean, it's just been such a phenomenal journey. And I really hope that if there's somebody out there watching this who wants to do something, maybe not even acting, but wants to do something, and they're scared, like I really, really hope that they can learn from this and that they can use it as inspiration to go, okay, do you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm gonna feel that fear and I'm going to carry on. I'm going to take it with me.
Well, I think they will find inspiration. And you mentioned it though. I think it was for our generation as well. We were just seen as the quirky kids. They've got a quirky, they're quirky, they're a little unusual. They didn't really seem to bother to understand us. Just don't bother them, right?
Look, I've always been a weirdo. I've always been no, I've always been the weird one.
Sure.
Anywhere I've always been the weird one for some reason. And do you know what? I embrace that. I love it. I love it. I don't want to be like everybody else. I don't want to be like the norm.
It, and look where it's got you, your own PR company. You've got a show as well, correct? You're doing a show?
Yes, a sketch show. Right, we've got an entertainment show coming up, with loads of comedy sketches and music and dancing and really fun things.
And what's the show's called? And where can they see it? Or will they be able to
Well,
see it?
it's called It's Luana. It's going to be available on Amazon Fire and also Roku TV. And that is coming this year. So that's really exciting.
That is exciting. And where can they follow so they can keep up with all your wonderful stuff you're doing?
Oh, follow me on Facebook, Luana Ribeira.
Fantastic. Well, there you have it, folks. Luana, thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure. This has been a lot of fun. Hope, folks, you got something from this. I know I did. And check out There's No Such Thing as Zombies. It's out on streaming now. Check out Luana's other work as well. Very exciting. And thank you, Luana. And hopefully we can
Oh,
get a
thank
chance.
you so much.
You bet. And hopefully we can get a chance maybe to talk again soon after your show is out. Because
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I've got an Amazon Fire Stick and Roku channel, so I'm ready. I'm ready to see
Oh,
this.
fantastic. You're all set. Let's do it.
Let's do it.